Welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Today's episode is actually a viewer-suggested video topic, and this comes from Australian Blastoise, one of the very original handful of subscribers I had to this channel once upon a time ago. And he brought up a good topic and a good question, and it's what's the real risk of Ultra Modern? But mainly the potential threats, general time frames for gains, print runs, and graded singles. So this isn't an easy question to answer because there's going to be a lot of speculation that's going to come on by my behalf. And I just got to warn everybody before you get into this video, anytime you try to predict the Pokemon future market, it's all going to be extremely speculative. But I'm just going to give you guys a lot of the warning signs. You got to keep in mind that I am a relatively bullish for Pokemon going forwards. I do believe that we're definitely going to hit a downturn in the near term, but I think we're going to come out of it pretty well. But the question is just going to be how do we come out of it? We're not going to come out of it as strong as we came in, but the reason why I'm still bullish is when we come out the other end, while we're not going to be as strong as we were coming in, we're still going to be so much stronger than we were maybe at the very beginning of 2020, and definitely way stronger than where we were in 2019. And that's just the very recent past. So that's why I'm still very bullish on it, because I still think we're going to be better off than those two areas, even though, we're going to lose some people along the way. But with that said, there are a very extreme amount of risks that come with Ultra Modern. To just jump right into it, we'll talk about print runs first. Keeping in mind, again, it's very hard to predict this kind of stuff, and no one knows for a fact what Pokemon print runs are. And that's true today as it was 20 years ago. No one knows exactly what print runs are. Maybe someday we'll get some leaked information out of Wizard of the Coast for the WotC sets. Maybe we'll get some leaked stuff out of Nintendo. But I'll tell you right now, even if in the future we do get leaked information from, either current or former employees of both companies, people are just going to say they're not true anyways. So we'll probably never really know for sure. With that said, there may be a few people out there in the hobby that actually do know. Yeah, put your tinfoil hat on real quick for that. There's a couple people who may know, who have talked to certain employees, but I'm not going to say any more about that. But with that said, okay, let me talk a little bit more about that. And I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I just want to, how do I phrase this so I don't get in too much trouble? Let me phrase it this way. Employees of this company are two things. One, they're not extremely high paid. Two, they might not care about keeping print runs a secret because they don't care. And then, screw it, we'll add a third on top of it. Sometimes when people become friends with certain people, people like to talk. And when people like to talk, they give out a lot of information for free. And print runs is a very easy conversation to have with employees of these companies, and to get information that maybe technically isn't secretive, it's just not being released to the public. And that's all I'll say about that. But anyways, let's continue with print runs. For Pokemon to go back and reprint sets is nothing new. They've done it forever. We can go back to the very distant, or sorry, I shouldn't say very distant, very recent past. Just look at Roaring Skies. Roaring Skies booster boxes, very expensive. What did Pokemon do? Just decided to reprint Roaring Skies into oblivion. We saw Roaring Skies booster boxes absolutely get destroyed in prices. Those things went from like $600 down to $80. I think right now, I don't really know what Roaring Skies' current booster box prices are. I'm going to guess around that $300 to $400 mark maybe. So we're still not even back to the highs of Roaring Skies. And that was even after the huge uptrend that we saw from 2020. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, evolutions. What did Pokemon do with evolutions? They said, oh, you guys want more of this? They reprinted it the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. They reprinted that shit for almost a half a decade. And still people couldn't get enough of it. And, out of a completely science fiction novel, we saw prices go up to $1,000, which made no sense at all. But that begs a really big question when it comes to print run. What amount of product is too much? And that's got to be the huge question on a lot of people's minds. Because print runs do not matter at the end of the day if the print runs still cannot meet demand. The problem is with Ultra Modern is that the print runs are increasing right now because Pokemon has already pretty much came flat out and said, we understand that there is heavy demand. We are going to print all impacted products. They came out, they told everybody that. The real problem is if demand starts to wane, meaning we see a lot of people who have recently joined the hobby leave the hobby, there will not be people out there who will be able to eat up all this supply, which in turn will make print runs a huge issue if they're too large. And it's just that simple. If there's not enough people to buy it, the print runs can be too large. And that's the thing, right? Again, you got to keep that in mind. Print run is very subjective type conversation. There are some modern sets which a lot of people do not believe have large print runs. And if you really think about it, okay, I know I'm going to talk about Cosmic Eclipse again, and I've managed to talk about Cosmic Eclipse in almost every single video I've ever made in this channel. But let's just think about Cosmic Eclipse real quick. Cosmic Eclipse, absolutely amazing set, stacked, character cards, tons of secret rares, you name the starter, had everything you ever wanted in a Pokemon set. Huge set too. I think it's like 232 cards just in the base set. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the number, not including all the secret rares and stuff. That set was released end of 2019. It was on shelves starting beginning of 2020. Very quickly, we saw the supply of Cosmic Eclipse dry up, and we never saw the supply come back onto the shelves. They quickly moved away from Sun and Moon, and they quickly went into Sword and Shield. And yeah, we did see that very initial, print run of Cosmic Eclipse. And at the end of 2019, very beginning of 2020, there was no COVID. There was no pandemic yet. So the demand for Pokemon cards was not really there at all. Saw a very little bit of Cosmic Eclipse trickle in between Sword and Shield and Rebel Clash, and then kind of by Darkness Ablaze, it was more or less gone. And then by the time Vivid Voltage came out, there was a very small select amount of tins you can find it. Like the Meowth V boxes and stuff like that were gone. You couldn't find those things if your life depended on it. And so the conversation started to become, was Cosmic Eclipse print run much smaller than we expected? Because a lot of people were waiting for reprints to happen that never really happened. Can we still expect to see a reprint of Cosmic Eclipse? Sure, maybe. As a betting man, I wouldn't say that has a high likelihood, only because as time ticks by, and I've said it before, as time ticks by and more sets come out, there's less and less likely a chance for Pokemon to jump that far back, and very importantly, keeping in mind that competitive play is going to eventually start up, to go back to a set that is, out of rotation doesn't make a ton of sense, but they can do whatever they want because they're Pokemon. But anyways, back to modern print runs. When we expect to see modern, we expect Pokemon Company to really start delivering. And I feel we're starting to see that with Chillin' Reigns. And the reason why is because, one, the Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, I did a community post, let people know those pre-orders were out. The pre-orders were available for an extremely long amount of time, which only means one thing. Pokemon had printed an absolute insane amount of those. Or, number two, Pokemon was accepting as many pre-orders as they can possibly get and are just going to print to meet demand. So, anytime you do a pre-order, you expect to get your pre-order immediately. There is a small chance that those pre-orders trickle out over a very long amount of time because Pokemon will just say, okay, we kept pre-orders open for 4 days. We got some absolute astronomical amount of pre-orders, and we're just going to continue to make this product until we're able to fill all those Pokemon Center pre-orders. I don't know. Or there's just warehouses full of these ETBs waiting for release, and they're just going to ship them out all on the first day. Who knows? But like I said, that's a scary part of print runs, is that print to meet demand. If they don't really allocate like booster boxes, think about it this way. The big thing with Pokemon is when, your local LGSs or not online retailers and all these people who put their pre-orders in with Pokemon, they're going to give a lot of numbers that are much higher than the amount of product they expect to receive because they expect to be allocated only a small percentage of what they ask for. So let's just say, hypothetically, I ask for 10,000 booster boxes, but instead, they only get allocated 10% of that, so they wind up with 1,000 booster boxes. But they've already expected that. There could potentially, in the future, come a time where somebody says, I want 10,000 booster boxes, and Pokemon has a new business model where they just print to meet demand, and they say, okay, you have gotten 100% of your allocation of 10,000 booster boxes. It's going to trickle through in 5 different waves. There is a chance that LGSs and online retailers, get everything they ask for, and they're going to say, oh shit, what have we done? Because for 5 waves of these booster boxes to come rolling through, I promise you by wave 2, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, there's going to be zero demand for this stuff, especially if Pokemon ever just changes their business model. And again, this is all speculation, but you got to talk about the risk, and that is the risk of Ultramodern, is that print run of just infinity. You ask for it, we're going to give it to you. So what is an, unlimited amount of printing for a modern product mean? What it really means is collectability, investability just goes to almost zero. It's a scary thought to think about. But the problem is with, that theory of just printing for until infinity, it just brings up the argument of right now, with the way the market is, Pokemon can't really meet the demand for whatever the most current set is. So does it make a lot of sense for them to do that? No, it doesn't make sense for them. It makes some sense to still continue to allocate sets like they have been, forever. It does make sense for them to allocate that, like I said, and just always kind of more or less focus on the most modern set. But if you think about a set very recently, Battle Styles, we saw a ton of Battle Styles hit the market. And what did we also see? Battle Styles continue to hit the market to the point where you can go into some retail stores and pick up ETBs sitting on the shelves. It had been such a long time since you can find ETBs on the shelves. But one of the reasons was, sure, pull rates and everything like that. But at the end of the day, people just didn't want to buy the product anymore. And a lot of that reason was because the expected value in that dropped an extremely lot. And more importantly, not only that, scalpers weren't able to pick that product up and instantly flip it on the secondary market for extremely high gains. So that's definitely a huge potential threat when it comes to modern. So next, Australian Blastoise wanted me to talk about genuine time frame for gains. And at the end of the day, you're going to find out that all these things and all these concerns about ultra modern, they're all connected. Because when it comes to realistic, genuine time frames for modern, it's just going to again come back to, does Pokemon go back and reprint sets? Because when they go back, they're going to bring down the prices of a lot of these booster boxes, and a lot of these pack prices, and a lot of these, individual card prices. Right now we're seeing a lot of, ultra modern booster boxes floating right around that $200 mark between Sword and Shield, Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, and yeah, they fluctuate. I don't want to talk about the nitty-gritty for each one, but you'll just see prices for these potentially go right back down to MSRP. And a lot of the reason is because with ultra modern, in order to get a lot of realized gains, there are different time frames for each product. Okay, let's just think about Battle Styles, right? Battle Styles, right at release, a lot of people got their pre-orders in early, were able to pick up booster boxes for $90 to $100. Right out the rip, we saw booster boxes go right up to $150, sometimes a little bit more. Some people were on the opposite end of the spectrum, paid way too much for pre-orders because they got caught up in FOMO and, wanted to pick up this set, ended up paying like ridiculous prices, $170, $180, which is kind of crazy to think about too, that you have two different groups of people at two different ends of the spectrum. You had people who did pre-orders of Battle Styles for like $170, and you had people that did pre-orders of Battle Styles for $90. That is one of the most drastic extremes that you could ever see in the hobby. And that's why I've always tried to preach and more or less beg people, please, 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 only ever buy modern product at MSRP, and if you're from Europe, RRP, because it's extremely important to not get burned in the long run. Is there a chance that we can see ultra modern drop below MSRP? Yeah, sure, anything's possible. Do I think that the drop below MSRP would ever be so drastic that people would be, totally upside down on any of these purchases? No, probably not, because I think there's always a bottom to all these prices, that if prices drop far enough, there's enough people out there that would just pick up tons of this product, especially if the prices were like $70 for a booster box. Because I do believe that a lot of these prices do have long-term, gains already kind of built into them. And we've already talked about like Battle Styles, and one of the very first videos I ever made about Battle Styles was before it was released. And in that Battle Styles video, I said Battle Styles will be the first ever Pokemon set you will see sit on shelves. And I made that video before Battle Styles was released. And the reason why was for two things. One, I thought Pokemon was going to print a ton of product very quick and was going to flood the market. Number two, Battle Styles pull rates sucked. So those two things I thought could combine to make Battle Styles be the first set we saw sit on shelves. And then very important to add to Battle Styles, and we're already seeing it happen right now, distributors are trying to dump Battle Styles as fast as they can. I just saw the other day Safari Zone had like an entire case of Battle Styles. It looked like they were trying to give them out for free. Like, that's how quickly we're seeing prices drop. So what can this mean? it could mean that Pokemon may not be as, you know, willing to go back and reprint battle styles. And what a lot of people will say is, no, Pokemon will want to reprint battle styles because of the TCG aspect, because it's such a competitive set within, the actual playing of the card game. Yes, that is definitely true. But there's all your TCG players and those type of places out there that are going to have all these singles. It's not going to be hard for people to complete their decks. They're still going to be able to do it. Pokemon has always made the entry point in order to be competitive very low. The reason why Pokemon won't want to go back and reprint them, throw, the TCG out the window for a little bit, because like I said, there's enough product out there to meet the demand of all the players. Pokemon's not going to want to reprint it because the people who are actually purchasing from the distributors are just not going to want battle styles. They're not going to want to put orders in. And it's just going to come down to that simple fact that because there is not enough meat on the bone for a lot of these stores, a lot of these people to sell battle styles, they're not going to want it. Given the option to buy battle styles versus Chill and Rain or versus Eevee Heroes, they're going to pass it 100% of the time. So, potentially, given enough time, you can see battle styles prices increase over time. There's no way to say that for sure because right now it just seems like the amount of product on the market is absorbent infinity amount of product. But again, I've said it before, the only person who's ever in the history of the world undefeated is Father Time. Father Time wins all. But that's the problem with this hobby, is we'll look at a set that was only released a couple months ago and talk about how it will now be on the shelves for eternity. It doesn't really work like that. But you gotta think about this stuff when it comes to Ultra Modern, because there always is the risk that Pokemon does continue to print this stuff, or they continue to do what they did with like Crimson Invasion or Steam Siege. They continue to put it in different products for years. I'm still picking up modern like collection boxes, V boxes that have Crimson Invasion in it. Yeah, that's how much of it there's a part of me that just wishes Pokemon would just take all the Crimson Invasion and redo a couple booster boxes, dump it onto the market, and just please get rid of it. I don't want to keep seeing it forever. But these are the risks that you're going to run into whenever you talk about modern. But more importantly, too, is the danger of graded cards. There's two schools of thought for the flood of cards that went to like PSA and CGC. One, well, PSA, a lot of it's sports cards, but this being a Pokemon channel, we're just going to talk about the flood of cards relating only to Pokemon. There's probably two types of cards that were sent. Base set, Jungle, Fossil, probably some of your Team Rockets, your Neos. I don't think we're going to see a lot of returns for a lot of the e-reader sets. I doubt we're going to see tons of Diamond and Pearl or any of the Black and White or anything in between, like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, stuff like that. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of that real early Wizard of the Coast stuff. And I think it's going to trickle off, to Expedition, Aquapolis, Skyridge. Those three sets, I doubt we see like a huge flood. Do I expect to see some? Yeah, definitely, because prices for those sets increase so much. But those sets always had a very strong collectible demand to it for people that were pretty entrenched in the hobby. Keep in mind, Skyridge right now, searching for it on eBay, you could actually find cards once in a while. A couple years ago, it seemed like it was almost impossible to find cards on eBay for Skyridge. But that's kind of a different conversation too. But when it comes to graded cards, yeah, you got that original Wizard of the Coast stuff, but You're also probably going to have a ton of, ultra modern cards. And ultra modern is really going to be when the huge amount of submissions went to PSA. And that's probably from October, November, December, January. Those 4 months are probably really strong. End of 2020, early 2021. And a lot of those cards are going to be modern cards. And when you talk about modern cards, you're talking about like, sorry, Vivid Voltage. I love Vivid Voltage. I think it's an amazing set. Yeah, you got the hyper rare Pikachu. I think even if, I don't know, a couple thousand of those cards get graded, I do believe the market will be able to absorb a decent amount of them. But that's really the high end of chase cards. And if you guys have opened enough booster boxes of Vivid Voltage, the pull rates for that hyper rare Chunkachu are really fucking shitty. Like, they're really bad. They're not easy to get at all. That card is very tough to get. So I think there will always be a decent amount, of demand for that card. But what we'll really see get hurt are like the amazing rares and, any any V card that people had graded. A lot of this modern, I don't want to call it junk cards, but modern low value cards, which the market was craving so much, anything graded for a while, a lot of people expected those cards to have, decent value or potentially long-term value. But guys, we're just not going to see that. I think we'll see, some of it trickle into the market. People who are the very first to get their returns back might do okay. They might be able to keep their head above water for a little while. And that's why I transitioned real hard from PSA to CGC, because I was worried about that exact scenario. And I've talked about it in my CGC submission. If you can still get your cards back fast enough and you're able to beat a lot of these bulk submissions that went to PSA, get your cards on the market, sell them, you can still do very good. I've already found that to be true. But with that said, if you end up, getting a lot of these returns back, you're not willing to either sell them at lower prices or sell them at competitive prices. Maybe that's the caveat there. Not just to talk about low prices for cards, but talk about competitive prices. Keeping your prices competitive, keeping your cards moving, you're going to do fine. But I'm really worried for a lot of people. And the scary thing is for the market very recently, especially when it came to modern, there were so many times I would look at prices that a lot of this stuff was selling at, and sometimes I wouldn't even question the actual prices, but I would question the people who were buying them, because so many times I'd have to ask myself, who are the people that are actually paying this much money for these different types of products? And me being me, it's always been so hard to wrap my head around those very simple questions. And one of the reasons this channel exists is because I try to talk out a lot of this stuff. I could not for the life of me figure out why people were paying so much money for modern product. But you already have something very important now to keep in mind. Their cost bases are probably pretty high because they paid an inflated amount to pick up this modern product. And then number two, they sent their cards away for grading. They now have the grading fees that they have to take into account, and they're going to get those cards back. They're going to have final value fees for eBay. They're going to have shipping. They're going to be into these cards for a pretty substantial amount of money. And the crazy thing is a lot of these people who were paying these extremely high prices, normally, in my experience, people that do really reckless things like that, or very unknowledgeable things, very undereducated about the actual market, those are the type of people who normally, in my experience, get burnt out the fastest. So if you find a lot of people that sent away a lot of, cards that a lot of people wouldn't really consider grading, sent cards away for a year, potentially year and a half timelines. When they do get these cards back, they might already mentally be checked out of the hobby. That is a very, very dangerous perfect storm that could happen. You have people that no longer care about the hobby, are already extremely financially invested, are well underwater on a lot of these cards. That's a perfect storm for people to just dump cards into the market, because at that point, they don't care. They're trying to recover whatever they can get back. And, maybe they'll learn a very expensive but very valuable lesson. And, I think that's a lot of people's fear. I know that's my fear. A lot of people I've talked to, I think they have very similar fears of that kind of stuff is going to happen. And, it's sad to say, a lot of the people in this hobby, a lot of the really well-respected, a lot of the trusted people in the hobby, they really were the ones to perpetrate a lot of this misinformation, to open packs and show PSA prices, and not just to show PSA prices, but to show like the current PSA 10 prices. And when I say current prices, I'm talking like current prices in January, current prices in November, when Pokemon was really at its peak. And don't get me wrong, that is definitely what a lot of people wanted to see. A lot of people were definitely in this hobby, and I'm afraid they were in it for the wrong reasons. But it all trickles back to this modern time and the risks that come with modern. And, I'm hoping I'm able to express some of these concerns. And I'm sure there's a couple that I'm missing, especially when it comes to modern grading and stuff. There's a lot to dissect there, a lot to really go into it. I've already talked about it previously. For modern product, you can see prices drop because people are also not able to grade their cards. And when I say they're not able to grade their cards, is that grading prices and turnaround times have increased together. Assuming PSA opens up, who's to say that we see PSA open up their bulk tier at $20? It can very realistically be a lot more. We've already seen CGC's, bulk grading fees go up to $15. And if you want to do subgrades, which for the most part, for a lot of people, that's why they want to go with CGC in the first place, is because of that transparency of grades and those subgrades. That's an extra $10. So to grade cards at CGC with subgrades, $25. PSA, $20. You start to look at some of these modern cards and you say, okay, am I ready to lock up this card and send it away for grading for an undetermined amount of time and have to pay $20 to $25 in a year or 2 years timeline, not knowing what the true value of that card will actually be at the end of the day? A lot of people will probably look at that and say, no, that's not where I want to be. That's not the risk I want to take. So if they don't want to take that risk, there's probably not a lot of incentive for them to open up a ton of modern, which again just cascades and makes that price keep dropping lower and lower and lower. But these are the risks that you gotta take into mind for modern. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of benefits for modern too, and I would love to talk about them, but this isn't really the topic of the video. The topic of this video is really on the risks and the dangers of modern. I am still very bullish when it comes to modern, but I also cannot be a fool. You cannot be a fool of what the risks are. But anytime you do any sort of collecting, any sort of investment, any kind of collectible, there is always apparent risk. You can't ignore it. But you can't ignore that there's always potential for an upside either. It's a real fine line. We're all walking the tightrope in a certain sense. But anyways, guys, I want to know what you guys have to think. Please let me know down in the comments. And hey, listen, for anybody out there who might be new to this channel and you somehow made it to the end of this video, I don't know how you did it, but you did it. You know, one of the 7 wonders of the world right there. Do me a favor, go down below, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, do me a favor, hit the like button. You guys are the best. I'll catch you on the next video.